This podcast is intended for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace therapeutic services of any kind. Please refer to the list of references provided if you need support.
Welcome back, everyone, to another Sessions with Sara Cate and Ashley. I'm Sara Cate.
I'm Ashley.
And today's episode is going to take some twists and turns that are completely unknown to Ashley and I, of course. Because as you all know, if you have listened to any of our other podcasts or sessions, we plan very little in order to really kind of be in the flow with you as you listen and to allow organic things to come up. And so something that kind of came through for me when I got the consistent night before text of what are we talking about tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. What was kind of sitting there for me, and I'm always curious about how the seasons affect these top themes with my clients.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
Because right now we're in very late summer, so things are winding down with the harvest. We're going into fall, which is inevitably a season of change, transition, ending. And we see it in the way that the foliage and the plants kind of shed and clear themselves out. And so these next two sessions are going to kind of feed into one another. So today we're going to talk about choices and just the next choice rather than the right choice. Something that's it is up with so many of my clients. I'm having this conversation over and over and over again right now, which is why I think it's so interesting and curious how it matches what we are doing seasonally. But it's just this, if I don't make the right choice, then everything will fall apart. And so they're putting, I call it a little bit of analysis paralysis. My dear friend, Christopher Michael, phrased that term to me a long time ago. And I was like, that's so right. That's so good. It's what we get into when we get so afraid and we're just analyzing what choice, that it paralyzes us. It doesn't allow us to actually make a choice because we're so afraid of making the wrong one. And then what comes up almost inevitably when we make quote unquote the wrong choice is shame. See, I was wrong. And then we go into I'm just, nothing good happens for me. I'm bad. I bring in bad things to my life, yada, yada, yada. So it's easy to go down that rabbit hole. So today we kind of wanted to dance around with this idea of what does it look like to engage with choice in the way that it's just the next step. And then I gather more information. It's taking the intensity off making the right choice and allowing us to just kind of intentionally say, okay, who knows what the outcome is going to be? Can I just allow it to bring me more information?
Yeah. But I think one of the things that's so something to think about is even if you quote make the right choice, you still don't know what's going to happen. You have no idea because tomorrow is not guaranteed. Next week, we don't know what's going to happen. And so regardless of which way, it's quite literally exactly like Sara Cate said, it is the next step in your path forward. That path forward is never a straight line. And we know that with everything in our life. And we even know that if you're talking about a physical injury to your body, recovery is not a straight line upwards. It weaves up and down. And the general trend is this upward trend, right? If we are choosing to continue down this path of self-discovery and returning home to yourself, like we keep talking about, there is a general trend upward, right? Of where we are moving towards our higher self. However, we don't know the outcome of anything that we decide to do until we do it, until we take that step. And then what happens is we take one step and the next thing is just the next step. It's not I don't know. I think that there's just so much there's so much built up around these quote big decisions.
Pressure.
And like, just to back up when I say like big decisions, because big decisions is going to look different to all of us. Like a big choice to me might seem like nothing to Sara Cate, and vice versa. And so when you're going through this and when you're thinking about this, remember that like, even if somebody around you, because this is what'll happen too, is people will,
Opinions.
yeah, they'll like spew them without you asking. But I forgot what I was gonna say.
No, you were, well,
What was I talking about?
You were talking about how there's so much pressure and build
Oh,
up
yeah,
these
yeah,
things, and it's just the next step begets the next step.
Yeah, it was just your reminder. This is what I was gonna say. This is just your reminder that like your decisions are your decisions, and regardless of what other people think, if it's a big deal to you, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And those feelings are worthy and valid, and like you deserve to like explore and find out what those are trying to tell you.
Yeah.
Instead of just brushing them to the side and telling yourself like you shouldn't be worried about it, you shouldn't, all of that stuff.
Oh, the shoulds. They're just sneaky little tricksters of like oppression.
Yeah.
They really are. Like shoulds collapse us. They make us feel small. They make us feel like we don't have a choice, because they're so pervasive in the culture of like manifestation, like you this idea that we somehow are wholly responsible for all the good and all the bad that happens in our life. If something bad happens, it was because, people going around preaching manifestation culture and karma culture are like putting us in these collapsed nervous systems to some degree, because it's telling you that if you didn't manifest the right shit, you manifested the wrong shit. If you can't tell, I'm not a fan of manifestation culture. I do think being intentional is really important. I think knowing what Ashley and I talk about, knowing who you are, so you can become aware of how you're engaging the world, what relationships you're entering into. Does this feel good for me? Do I feel seen in it? Do I feel held in it? Or am I feeling, like that's how we quote unquote, call something in, is when we are aware and we are attuned. And that comes back to the choice. That comes back to, if I'm looking at these options, what one feels like, I can actively go towards it. Sometimes it might just be the easier choice. And guess what? That might look like a regression to other people. You might make a choice that is just a little bit easier for you in this moment, and gives you, just because it's familiar and it's kind of easy. Is it maybe going to yield the ultimate evolution that you're working towards? No. But if that choice today that you made is giving you a little bit of rest, kind of Ashley and I talked about healing fatigue in a podcast episode, and this goes back to that. Sometimes we can't always be in the work. Sometimes we have to make the familiar choice to give ourselves some reprieve. Yeah. And then the next day, maybe when we're like, okay, I feel like I can kind of go back towards the hard work again, or I can go back towards the effort again, because you gave yourself that you made the choice to give yourself that day of just like, I'm going to go back to some of those thought patterns that don't ultimately serve me, but I know, and I'm familiar with them. Okay. And now today I'm like, no, I can overcome that. I don't want to continue that. I'm going to go towards this hope of my own evolution, my own expansion, those kinds of things. Every day is a choice. And so what Ashley was saying is like, it's up and down, it's left and right. So many of my clients will come in after they've made a choice, and they'll carry this shame in with them that like, somehow I'm going to judge the fact that they kind of did something, that they went back to a pattern that we've been working on disrupting. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that happens. There's a reason it's a pattern. It's familiar. You're gonna go back to it. That's not regression. Sometimes it's stepping out so you can step back in a little bit more intentionally.
Well, and what happens when, like Sara Cate said, you make that from, like, if you're trying to disrupt a pattern and you make a choice that brings you back to that familiar pattern, what starts to happen is, on the other side of that, you start to recognize first by yourself, right? Like you instead of having like somebody help walk you through it and be like, okay, like, so where did the break come from? Right? Like, where did you make the choice that led you to this familiar pattern? You start to notice it yourself. And then you start to notice it faster, and you start to recognize in your body, like, okay, I made that familiar choice. And then this is what happened afterwards. I just didn't feel as good.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next time you make the different choice that is maybe a little bit more challenging, but then you feel better on the other side of that. It's like the confirmation of what that sensations in your body
Mm-hmm.
and what you're feeling and what it produces, right? Because even if you make the familiar choice for 17 days in a row, and you make the uncomfortable choice the 18th day to disrupt that pattern, you are eons ahead of where you just were.
Hand clap from the soundboard. Because you're so right. Even if it's the 18th day.
Yeah, like it doesn't. And so I think, again, like this pressure of like
Yeah.
always having to
Ugh.
be right. It's just not realistic.
Mhm.
And it puts you in this constant state of like, oh my God, what do I got to do next? Oh my God, am I going to do this right? Am I going to do that right? Am I going to like be okay? And it's like, of course you're going to be okay, because you're going to just take that next step. That's it. It's just
The
one
next
step.
step. I mean, if you know Frozen 2, there is a very intense song about doing just the next right thing. I don't love that it's the next right thing. I won't sing it. I promise. I'm tempted.
I
but
think you should.
I don't even trust myself with the Frozen songs. Those ranges are out of Sarah's range. Like leaps eons out of my range. But like that concept of like, just do the next thing.
Yeah.
And then do the next thing. Like my clients and me too. I want, sometimes I want the change to be big, and I want it to be transformational.
But that's also what we get from culture, is that if there's any quote change, it's like a big, huge,
it's the light bulb moment.
Yeah.
It's like these just exaggerated expressions of like growth, and really growth for my clients. And even, just speaking clinically, clinical therapeutic change is based on incremental change because it's sustainable.
Yes.
Sustainability is what creates our ability to be consistent. When something is sustainable, we can stay in it. That's why like diet culture doesn't work. That's why it's $1 billion industry, because they make you overhaul to some degree everything you've ever done with food, everything you've ever done with exercise. It's all these massive changes, and then no, you can't sustain it because it doesn't fit into your life, and it doesn't fit into the patterns and the habits that you already have ingrained in you.
Yeah.
And so making small adjustments. Somebody just told me one of my clients told me they were reading a book called Tiny Habits, and I need to do some more research on this, but they were kind of sharing with me that they were like, if you're trying to change one habit, literally the person speaking in the book was like, and you're like, let's say you're trying to incorporate something as simple as flossing into your day-to-day, which Lord knows my dentist would love if I did that more consistently. I get yelled at every time. He's a great dentist, but he does sternly speak to me about my flossing habits. But he's like, you brush your teeth, let the teeth brushing, if that's something that's easy to you, let that be the prompt. And then you floss one tooth and you're done for the day. You are not going in and saying, every day I'm going to floss for the next month. You're saying, I'm going to floss one tooth. Also, my dentist told me to floss the teeth that you want to keep. And I was like, if I'm only flossing one tooth, one tooth wonder over here. But that imagery was really important to me. And I was like, okay, so let's take that and apply it to the choices that you're making in your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
If it is just one moment where you disrupt a thought pattern and you make a choice to say, okay, yes, the fear is here, and I'm going to play with the idea of that new job I'm thinking about. Yep. Okay, back in the fear. I'm going to stay in the fear. No, I'm not ready to change. I'm not ready to do it. No, I'm not ready to adjust. Okay, but what if? And there's that moment of choice to say, I could let my mind wander a little bit to the possibility here. Right. And then you do that. And then the rest of the day, it's kind of the same thing. No, I'm not ready. It's not time. It's not time. Blah, blah, blah. Here's all the reasons why. Okay, fine. And then the next day, what if it's 2 conscious moments of just kind of like, let me think about what that could look like. Or if you're grappling with 2 big choices, put them on the table. Take 2 pieces of paper. I have my clients do this all the time. Take 2 pieces of paper, write choice A, choice B. And you just set them on the table, and they're just kind of in your awareness, and you walk up to the table and you look at which one you're more drawn to in that moment. And then you kind of sit with, okay, so if it's choice B, sit with how you feel in your body about that, and then go about the rest of your freaking day, doing the things, living the life, and then walk back up to the table in the afternoon. What one are you more drawn to? And then what do you notice in your body? This is all about what's sitting there for you, because sometimes it is okay to not make the big choice. Sometimes it is okay to stay where you are. That is a choice. And I tell that to clients all the time with deciding to do this work. I'm like, you don't have to completely, utterly change your whole life right now in this moment.
Right.
What if we leave this pattern and this habit alone for a little while we work on some of these other things? Like, we don't have to overhaul everything all at once. When we're making decisions for our life, they are incremental. They can be really small. And yet those are the ones that are actually probably going to create revolution in your life over time.
Yeah. Well, that speaks exactly to what you were saying before about the sustainability. And when we try to do these big overhauls and then there's failure, then those are often the times then where we get really stuck in the shame spiral. And then when we go to try and like find those tiny little changes again, or the big change, it becomes a little bit harder because we have to work. Yourself. Yeah. Because we have to come up against that. And, like I was just working with this client, and she kind of was in a very similar situation to where I was a couple of years ago. And she made like a little bit of a different choice. And I said, well, what made you decide that, like, for whatever reason, Tuesday at 2 p.m., that's when you decided that you were going to make that choice? And she was like, I just knew that it was time. And I was like, that's it. Because if you are trying to, again, like make this huge overhaul, the sustainability isn't going to be there. The revolution isn't going to be there. But if you're trying to like break these habits, and like going back to that 17-day example, on the 18th day, whatever made you make that decision, it's just, you have an inner knowing within yourself that you're choosing something different for yourself. And it's those teeny tiny choices, those teeny tiny changes that creates the trust within yourself. And eventually, like we've talked about this trust in yourself on probably almost every episode, this is another example of how it builds. It's not creating these big, huge, bomb type changes in your life where you blow everything to the ground all the time. You can't. That would be completely exhausting, and your nervous system wouldn't have time to catch up. No. And it would be a lot. Right. But if you can surrender to the trust in yourself, just the tiniest bit, the answers will come through. Like Sara Cate was explaining with like just looking at the paper, what you're doing when you're looking at that paper is you're letting your body decide, which one am I drawn to? Because it's not like, okay, I'm not going to look at choice A and I'm going to like take 5 minutes to describe it, and then B and take 5 minutes. It's like you're walking up to it and you're letting your body decide which one to go. And it's a split second. Which one am I drawn to? And that's it. There's no pressure behind it. It's just, what am I drawn to? It doesn't mean what am I drawn to and now this is my life sentence. It's what am I drawn to in this moment? Because even if you do that and you make the choice, it's still not your life sentence, regardless of which direction you go. It's not your life sentence.
Well, and then, because then in the next moment, it could change.
Exactly.
The next time you walk up to the table, and what we're trying to kind of, I think, shockingly point back to, yet again, another session.
You don't say.
You don't say. That comes back to what in my body is like, what is the impulse in my body, and what is it that I feel that I am, Ashley was saying, the trust in myself, that this is what I am drawn to. This is what I want to do. Trusting myself, trusting that relationship that we have to our bodies, trusting the relationship that we have to ourselves, to say, you know, this one, I would have thought I would have made this really intense choice. And I'm actually just making this one that feels, I'm noticing my belly soften. I'm noticing my shoulders drop away from my ears. I'm noticing the tension in my jaw kind of let go. It's so, and that's how we are building that, because guess what? If you trust that one, if you don't make the big blow your life up choice that you think that like would be the cool one, let's say, because culture tells us we got to blow it up. But if you make the choice that's like, no, actually, I need to take a little bit more time in this place that I'm in, and you give yourself that time, if you feel that trust in your body to say, yeah, it's actually like, this feels more supportive right now, it is going to give you so much more effort likely to then go back towards that bigger choice and be organized in a different way to actually maybe make those more drastic changes because you're more supported to do so.
Yeah.
It builds your capacity to do so.
Yeah.
And and so I just think it's, again, this is why there's not a wrong choice, because what if making choice A helps better prepare you to make choice B? You're still making both damn choices.
Yeah.
It's just the whole process behind it. We live in this culture, this very binary culture on all levels of right, wrong, good, bad, should, shouldn't. And then the information for us is in the gray. It's in the middle. It's in the questioning. It's in the questioning, and then bringing it back into our bodies and being like, what actually for me makes the most sense? And this is something that has been well won in my life. I have had to fight tooth and nail I was just having this conversation with my dear friend Alex. Like, we were both raised in very performative environments where it was like, you did the thing that looked the best, and you put on the show, the performance. And so when I became an adult, me knowing exactly what I would want out of life was so skewed. And it was so, my 20s were for doing it the right way. My 20s were for doing it the way that it was done before me, how I should do it. And my 30s were for changing all of that. But even me changing all of that was terrifying. And I didn't always make, again, quote unquote, the right choices for Sara, because I still couldn't hear my own inner voice. I couldn't hear what the choice that I wanted to make was. And so I had to just kind of make a choice and then reroute. Okay, well, no, that actually didn't bring me closer to the thing I think I want to feel. So then I would
but then you learned that.
I learned that.
Yeah.
And that making all of the choices that didn't actually bring me closer to what I now know how I want, because I've spent all of the time making all of the different choices to get me here, good, bad, and indifferent. Like, it's all of it got me here. But if we, like Ashley was saying, if we go into the failure of something, if we live in the mistake culture, the right, wrong culture, if we subscribe to this story that we're bad if we make the wrong choice, then we're not actually going to give our intuition permission to learn and to hear and to speak up and to help guide us a little bit more strongly next time.
Yeah. I've spoken about this for sure in the earlier episodes, maybe not recently, about like my career. And it's no secret to the people who know me now that I used to say that if I could do it all over again, I would not go to PT school. And part of me still feels like that is 100% true. However, I went through this period where I literally was like, because like Sara Cate said, I did what was quote good, right? I took a quote good job, a good career path. To be honest, people ask me all the time, like, how did you get into physical therapy? I'm like, I don't know. I honestly make up a story sometimes.
Because it's
just to
easier.
be- yeah. Cause I'm like, if I tell you that I don't know, and I really didn't have a desire to do it, it's going to be a conversation that I don't want to have with you. Because they won't understand. They likely won't understand, or they'll do what a lot of people do and be like, but PT is so rewarding. It's so blah, blah, blah. Yes, for some people it is. And it is not truly in my heart. There are aspects of the PT world that I truly, truly love. And I went through this really big time of feeling the shame of like, you just spent so much money on this schooling. And the day I graduated, I was like, damn, now I really have to work in this profession.
Now I'm stuck.
Now I like really have to do this. I told my
Yeah.
dad that I wanted to just move to Guatemala. And sometimes I wonder if I would have done that, if I would still be living in Guatemala. I don't know. Maybe I would. Probably. And that's kind of, but I was then told, no, you went to school for this. You have student loans. This is the good thing to do. This is the good job. And so through that, then I had like my career, like I have had amazing bosses. I've had amazing coworkers. I've had some not so good situations too, like we all have, right? But in this like learning, what does Ashley want? Because I graduated school and I was like, what do people do? Because I went straight from high school, undergrad, grad school. And then I graduated and I'm 25. And I was like, oh, people aren't doing homework at night in their mid-20s. People aren't like studying for tests. Like, what do I do now? I had no idea who I was. I had no idea what my desires were, what to do next. And so there was no way. I knew that PT wasn't where I wanted to be. And this was 12 years ago. So this progression of me changing my career took a long time, but it was tiny little steps along the way. I would get like little hits of like, you really love working with women. Explore that. Like, what is that? Why? It's not that like, I just didn't want to do like regular outpatient PT with men. I was just gravitated always towards the females. And so I was like, okay, that's something. I learned that I could like explore that, right? It was very non-threatening. I could just say like, okay, I really prefer working with females. What about that? And then it was like, okay, then my body gave me something else. Okay, it's actually this piece that you like to learn about and this piece that you like to help people with. So like, be curious about that. And then it was like, okay, so now here's the other information you get. And then there was a moment in my life just this past year where there was a really big decision to close my physical office location. But that quote, big decision came after, for me, years of tiny little changes. And when I made that decision to close my office, to others, it looked like I was blowing up my life. And there were unbelievable comments made to me by people. It's often the people closest to you who don't always understand. Like literally people saying like, I hope it doesn't blow up in your face. Like things like that, like
which is so helpful.
Right. Like, thank you so much. But the crazy thing is, I did not feel that in my body at all. I was so sure and so understanding of what I actually wanted and what my body was feeling, that like safety in that decision of like, yes, it was unknown. I didn't know the outcome. Like, you're right. It could have blown up. It still could. Like, I don't know.
It always can.
Right. But I was so sure because I had all this practice of listening to those little like pings and like pulls that I got of exploring what I actually wanted more, what I was drawn towards and why. And what didn't happen right away. I wasn't able to answer the whys all the time. And I went back to typical regular 10-hour shift PT jobs a couple times, doing jobs that I hated. But then it was like the confirmation of like, nope, you were correct. It still isn't right. And you were correct in the other one. And then I was like, okay, it was so much easier to go back. And so that's like maybe one of the best examples I have in my personal life of like the slow progression. And then it was like, here it is. Here's a big, if you want to talk like big tiny steps, right? It was a really big step, and I was so ready for it.
Mhm.
Did it feel comfortable all the time? No. There was anxiety, there was fear. Of course there is.
Well,
'cause
and
that's
there's also
unknown.
disappointment too.
Yeah.
When it's like when Ashley's in these like when she goes back to one of these PT jobs, right? So then she made a choice. Okay, I need to go back to this for whatever reason, whatever instigated it. Again, she went back to it, and then she was like, God, yeah, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't what I want to do. Like, and while that disappointment is uncomfortable and it's not fun, sometimes it is the most important information that we could ever get. It's
Mhm.
more important than it being like, oh, I love this, right? It's more important for us to hear and see that for ourselves, maybe yet again. You know, I am a person in this lifetime that's like, I know that damn stove is hot, but I'm going to have to touch it maybe 9 times before the 10th time. I'm like, oh, wait, that stove's hot. You know, I'm that kind of person, but I like to learn things the hard way. But it is so, it makes those decisions. I love how Ashley used that example because it makes it made the decision for her to close her practice, the physical office, almost simple.
Yeah.
Because she made years and years and years of choices that then, even in the face of people saying things to challenge it or to question her or to dissuade her from making such a big choice to them that was bringing up their own shit, projection. But like for her to just kind of say, this is actually what's right. And I know that now for me, because I made a lot of wrong, right, indifferent choices along the way. I've gathered information for the last 15 years. And that's where we're talking about the intentionality.
Yeah.
Not the manifestation. One could say, oh, well, Ashley manifested this. Probably to some degree by, yes, just paying attention over the years of, I don't like this. I don't want this. This doesn't feel aligned. This feels aligned.
Yeah. And Sara Cate earlier in the episode mentioned, like making the safer choice. There were moments for probably the last 5 years that I was like, I got to do something different. I need to get out of this. And then I would go into another like year of doing the same thing because I wasn't ready. And if I had attempted to like close that like physical location side of my office at that moment, and somebody said to me, I hope it doesn't blow up in your face. Oof. I would have went running back so quickly and probably worked even harder and did more 10-hour day shifts in a PT office that I knew I hated because I would have been like, this is all I can do. This is all it is. And so it is the journey along the way where you learn about the magic within yourself and you get to
That's really sweet.
and you get to thanks, Sara Cate.
Yeah, just like that.
But you get to know the sensations in your body that guide you towards the next step. And every single step is the right step. It's just a step.
Do the next right thing.
Here she goes, y'all.
But it's true. And so if we take the importance off, when we say right, when we're saying right, we're saying that in its own singular meaning. We're not saying that there's a wrong one. We're saying that right by itself exists. If you were making that choice, it is the right choice for you. If you make it, that's it. If you make a choice, you know, that is yours. And that is where our power comes from. Because even for me, when I made choices that, like Ashley was saying about her, like that led her back to something that she didn't actually really want to do, I still felt empowered to make a different choice when I recognized that thing wasn't for me because I had made the choice to get there. And unfortunately, trauma disempowers us in our choice making a lot of the time. And so when we do, if you're recovering from trauma, if you're healing from trauma, if you have trauma in your history, one of the most essential parts of healing is to bring the power and the choice back into your own being. And so doing that, I think Ashley and I made an example a couple of weeks ago of something really small. Like, am I going to drink tea? Am I going to drink coffee? Right. Mm-hmm. When we give ourselves permission to explore what we want, it's always going to be coffee.
I'm going to drink coffee.
I knew she was going to say that. When we give ourselves permission to just ask those small questions, put the A/B choice down on your table, and you go, what do I feel about this one? What do I feel about that one? It's actually so much less about whatever choice you do make, and so much more about the information that you feel when you're paying attention to what your body and your spirit and your being are asking. It isn't about the A/B choice. It's about the fact that in your body, you're feeling the right and the privilege and the respect and the ability to make a choice for yourself. That's really important, because then that will bring your intuition forward, and that will create a sense of trust with your body that maybe was otherwise broken because of trauma or because of, unfortunate events that we experience in this life. So these little choices, even if it takes us somewhere, quote unquote, you don't want to be, you made a choice. And so make another one, right? Mm-hmm. That is actually the trust. B. Bosnack, she talks about this a lot. She's like, she's a yoga teacher out of New York. And she says, it's not about coming out of alignment. It's about learning the way back, because then you trust that you can and you will.
Yeah. So good.
So good. Well, if it was your choice to listen to this, we are glad you're here. And if you got something out of it, or you think that somebody else might in your life, share, subscribe. What are the other ones? Like,
comment,
review.
Yeah, leave us a review.
Please leave us a review or comments. We love reading those. They make us feel really a lot of beautiful things in our bodies and our hearts.
Yeah.
And so please, even if it's hate, we'll probably want to read it.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of there's screenshots back and forth, and then the hearts and cry emojis.
Yeah, or
happy
send us
cry.
a message.
Yeah.
We love those too. Anything that you want to share with us, we would love to receive.
Suggestions too. If you're going through something and you want us to talk about something, let us know.
Yeah.
Send us a message.
Your stuff might just show up on here.
Yeah.
Some people might not want that.
Well, no, but that's okay. Well,
I'm just saying.
We won't share your personal information.
No.
But if you're hey, talk about this topic,
we will.
You just might see it on here. Okay, next week we will be talking about major life transitions, which
major life transition
goes hand in hand with these. See what we did here? We did
choice.
Transition. Okay.
Can't wait to see you next week.
Bye.